I know that reading the syllabus and reviewing the course site provides a lot of information about the expectations for a class, but I want to say hello and let you know I'm looking forward to working with you. I thought it might be good to explain a little more, too, about what you'll learn and why this class is included in the curriculum. The graphic in this slide probably seems familiar. It's a simple overview of the scientific method you've learned about in other classes. This class is designed to help you learn how the scientific method is used in psychology. We also refer to that as research methods in psychology. In addition to connecting with what you learned in science classes throughout your education, you'll find that the topics we study also relate to other classes. In general psychology or educational psychology, you probably had a unit that provided an overview of research methods, and you learned about knowledge generated through research. In statistics class, you'll learn about some of the processes we use in carrying out research. We'll also build on what you learned or provide a context for what you will learn in other core classes. This class includes a lot of writing, for example, using what you learned in English and composition classes. We'll also use Microsoft Word and other software, drawing on knowledge related to the information technology requirement. Aside from what you've learned in other classes, I have a feeling you actually apply many of the ideas from this class almost every day. We all conduct informal research on a regular basis. Should I buy this product? How can I make the best cup of coffee? What helps me sleep? What foods taste the best together? Each of these questions represent the start of a research process. Your questions might be about different topics, but I have a feeling you ask yourself research-related questions every day. This class helps us think about how we can design more formal research studies and communicate our findings. Another way to think about what you'll learn is the difference between information and knowledge. I thought about how important it is to understand that difference when I read the first section of an essay called Damage by Wendell Berry. He wrote about shaping a hill so that he could add a pond. At first, it appeared to be a success. The pond filled and he could keep a few animals there. But it wasn't long before the earth shifted and fell into the pond. He explained it this way. The trouble was a familiar one. Too much power, too little knowledge. The fault was mine. I was careful to get expert advice, but this only exemplifies what I already knew. No expert knows everything about every place, not even anything about any place. If one's knowledge of one's whereabouts is insufficient, if one's judgment is unsound, then expert advice is of little use. These ideas are similar to the underlying logic for this class. He emphasizes the idea of knowledge, just as we will. There's a wealth of powerful information available, but we'll work to understand what information means. In the process, we'll also recognize the boundaries of our own knowledge and that of others, so that we know when we need to seek another source or avoid making a claim. Taken together, this helps us think about why it's important to understand one of the themes for this class, the difference between experimental and non-experimental. So, this class is about research methods, the process of conducting a research study. But the bigger picture is that this class is really about knowledge, about how we know what we know, and adding to it. The idea that this class is about knowledge probably gives you a good idea why we learn about research methods. The poem and other ideas might seem a little complicated, but you've probably come across other examples that are actually pretty simple. You might have even noticed that many of the things we learn about in psychology seem like common sense. You might have also noticed that common sense does not always mean everyone knows or believes the same thing. For example, I have a feeling you've heard people say opposites attract when talking about relationships, but have also heard birds of a feather flock together. Research methods helps us figure out which is more likely to be the case. Or, as one author explained it, progress in psychology happens when someone finds a clever way to test common sense ideas. As a side note, you might have noticed that I said we try to figure out what's more likely to be the case. I added a disclaimer of sorts because we're learning about people, and one thing we've learned is that there's always the possibility that something will be different for a person or a group, not unlike the idea that the guy was making with the poem a minute ago. Oh, and opposites attract or birds of a feather. Social psychology research supports the idea that birds of a feather flock together. In other words, we tend to interact with people who are like us. Another reason we learn about how to apply the scientific method and conduct research in psychology is because psychology is defined as a science. There are numerous professional organizations representing the subfields of psychology, and many of those organizations host a conference where research is presented and publish academic journals reporting on empirical research. The two largest professional organizations for psychology, APS and APA, emphasize research and science in their mission statements. APS is actually an abbreviation for the Association for Psychological Science. In 2005, the members voted to change the name of the organization from the American Psychological Society to emphasize the scientific nature of the discipline. So bringing it all together, I hope you'll learn about how to conduct research in psychology to increase your knowledge. That's important because there's a lot of information available, but it's not always accurate or applicable. It's also important because psychology is a science.